Section 1, A Legacy of Mistrust, written by Thomas Friedman. The relationship between Israel and Iran is deeply rooted in mistrust, stretching back decades. Before the 1979 Islamic Revolution, the two nations maintained relatively cordial ties. However, the revolution dramatically shifted the geopolitical landscape. Iran's new theocratic regime, led by Ayatollah Khomeini, viewed Israel as an illegitimate state. Khomeini's ideology fueled anti-Israel sentiment, framing the conflict in religious terms. The mistrust between the two nations is further compounded by historical events. Israel's support for Iran during the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s did little to bridge the divide. Iran's nuclear program, which it insists is for peaceful purposes, is viewed by Israel as an existential threat. This perception is rooted in the repeated threats by Iranian leaders to wipe Israel off the map. The deep-seated mistrust between Israel and Iran has created a volatile environment. Even minor incidents have the potential to escalate rapidly. This underlying tension serves as a constant threat to regional stability and has repeatedly brought the two nations to the brink of war. Section 2. Nuclear ambitions and regional hegemony. At the heart of the Israel-Iran conflict lies a struggle for regional dominance. Iran, seeking to re-establish itself as a major power, views Israel as a significant obstacle. Iran's nuclear ambitions are central to this power struggle. Tehran claims its nuclear program is peaceful, but Israel and others are suspicious. A nuclear-armed Iran would alter the regional power balance. Israel views this scenario as unacceptable. This disagreement has led to sanctions and covert operations. Section 3. Proxy conflicts and shadow wars. The Israel-Iran conflict is often characterized as a shadow war, fought through proxies and covert operations. Both countries have engaged in a dangerous game of tit-for-tat, striking each other's interests indirectly. This shadow war has played out in various arenas, including cyber attacks, assassinations, and sabotage. One of the most active fronts in this shadow war is Syria. Israel has conducted numerous airstrikes targeting Iranian-backed forces and weapons shipments destined for Hezbollah. Iran, in turn, has responded with attacks on Israeli-linked targets in the region. This ongoing exchange of blows demonstrates the high stakes involved and the constant risk of escalation. The maritime domain has also become a battleground. There have been multiple incidents of attacks on Israeli and Iranian-linked ships in the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf. These attacks, often attributed to each other's forces, highlight the vulnerability of maritime trade and the potential for wider disruptions. Section 4. The Red Lines. What could spark a wider war? While both Israel and Iran have so far avoided a full-scale war, several red lines, if crossed, could trigger a wider conflict. First and foremost is Iran's nuclear program. Israel has repeatedly stated that it will not allow Iran to acquire nuclear weapons and has hinted at preemptive military action to prevent it. Another red line is Iran's entrenchment in Syria. Israel is determined to prevent Iran from establishing a permanent military presence on its northern border. Any significant escalation of Iranian activity in Syria, particularly the transfer of advanced weaponry to Hezbollah, could provoke a strong Israeli response. Finally, a direct attack on Israeli soil, whether by Iran or its proxies, could lead to a swift and devastating Israeli retaliation. The 2023 Hamas attack on Israel, while not directly attributed to Iran, demonstrated the potential for miscalculation and the rapid escalation of violence. Section 5. Allies and adversaries, the global chessboard. The Israel-Iran conflict is further complicated by the involvement of other global powers, each with its own interests and agendas. The United States, Israel's closest ally, has provided unwavering diplomatic and military support. However, Washington's relationship with Tehran has been strained since the 1979 Islamic Revolution and further aggravated by the nuclear issue. Russia, on the other hand, has emerged as a key backer of Iran. Moscow's relationship with Tehran is complex, driven by a shared antipathy towards US influence in the region and a desire to counter Washington's global dominance. Russia has provided Iran with sophisticated weaponry, including the S-300 air defense system, and has cooperated with Iran in Syria. China, a rising global power, has also deepened its ties with Iran. Beijing sees Tehran as a crucial partner in its Belt and Road Initiative and a valuable source of energy. China has been reluctant to take sides in the Israel-Iran conflict, preferring to maintain cordial relations with both countries. Section 6. The US, a steadfast ally walking a tightrope. The United States faces a delicate balancing act in the Israel-Iran conflict. Washington is committed to Israel's security and has pledged to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. However, the US is also wary of getting dragged into another major conflict in the Middle East, especially after its costly wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The Biden administration has sought to revive the Iran nuclear deal, which was abandoned by former President Donald Trump. The deal, known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, placed strict limits on Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. However, negotiations to revive the JCPOA have stalled, and tensions between Washington and Tehran remain high. The US has also increased its military presence in the region, deploying warships and fighter jets to deter Iranian aggression. Washington has conducted joint military exercises with Israel and Gulf Arab states, sending a clear signal of deterrence to Tehran. Section 7. Russia, an uneasy partnership with Iran. Russia's relationship with Iran is a marriage of convenience, driven by shared interests. Both countries view the United States as a rival and seek to limit American influence in the Middle East. Russia has provided Iran with diplomatic cover at the United Nations Security Council. Moscow's military intervention in Syria in 2015 strengthened its ties with Iran. The war in Ukraine has strained Russia's relations with the West and pushed Moscow closer to Tehran. Section 8. The Perils of Miscalculation. The volatile mix of historical grievances, strategic rivalries, and proxy conflicts creates a tinderbox in the Middle East. Even a minor miscalculation or unintended escalation could ignite a wider war with devastating consequences. The risk of misperception and misjudgment is amplified by the lack of direct communication channels between Israel and Iran. The absence of trust and the prevalence of propaganda make it difficult to de-escalate tensions and prevent misunderstandings. Both sides often interpret each other's actions through the lens of suspicion, increasing the likelihood of overreaction. The presence of non-state actors, such as Hezbollah and Hamas, further complicates the situation. These groups operate with a degree of autonomy and may not always act in accordance with the wishes of their patrons. The potential for accidents and unintended consequences is also high in such a volatile environment. A naval incident in the Persian Gulf, a stray missile landing in the wrong place, or a cyber attack with unforeseen consequences could quickly spiral out of control. Section 9. A Powder Keg. The fragile stability of the Middle East. The escalating tensions between Israel and Iran have brought the Middle East to a precarious juncture. The region is a powder keg, and the consequences of a wider conflict would be catastrophic. Millions of lives would be at risk, and the global economy would be plunged into turmoil. The humanitarian cost of a war would be immense. The Middle East is already grappling with multiple humanitarian crises, including the wars in Syria and Yemen, the displacement of millions of people, and widespread poverty. A wider conflict would exacerbate these crises and create new ones. The global economy would also suffer a severe blow. The Middle East is a vital energy hub, and a disruption to oil and gas supplies would send shockwaves through the global market. The cost of energy would skyrocket, leading to inflation, recession, and social unrest. Section 10. The urgency of diplomacy averting a catastrophe. The only way to prevent a catastrophic war between Israel and Iran is through diplomacy. The international community must work together to facilitate dialogue, rebuild trust, and find a peaceful resolution to the conflict. This will require all parties to show restraint, compromise, and a willingness to engage in good faith negotiations. The revival of the Iran nuclear deal is a crucial step in the right direction. The JCPOA, while not perfect, provides a framework for addressing the international community's concerns about Iran's nuclear program. The United States should return to the deal without preconditions, and Iran should resume full compliance with its obligations. Beyond the nuclear issue, there is a need for a broader dialogue on regional security. This dialogue should include all stakeholders, including Israel, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and other Gulf Arab states. The goal should be to establish mechanisms for conflict resolution, confidence-building measures, and cooperation on shared challenges such as terrorism and climate change.